Hi, this is Brian Batterman with Process Toolkit 101, and today we're going to talk about labor resources and labor resource efficiency. You know, labor is one of the biggest, if not the biggest costs that a company has from time to time. And we go through and find companies do not get enough information to make good decisions, or if they do get information, they don't get enough information to make good decisions. At Process Toolkit 101, we take you to the bottom of the process so we can see exactly what's going on and work it from the bottom up to help you make ironclad decisions about labor resources as well as other things in your business. So we want to take you through a quick example to show you just why this is so important. So stick with us here. Okay, so we're going to talk about a company that has revenues of $3.24 million per year. And in order to support that level of revenue, they have 30 employees. And of course, they have to produce something to generate that revenue, and we call it units per day. And in this case, they're producing 210 units per day. Now, don't get hung up on that. Units are anything that a company produces to produce revenue. So this could be production and manufacturing. It could be number of service hours that you deliver to your customer. It could be loan applications. Whatever it is for your company, it's units of output that generate revenue. So in this case, this company uses 30 employees to produce 210 units per day. So what we really want to know is how long does it take to produce each one of those units, right? So in order to get to that, we have to talk about this thing, effective capacity, for a minute. And effective capacity is simply this. If I hire you to work an 8-hour day, it's unrealistic for me to expect that you're going to come in and spend all of your time, 100% of that 8 hours, performing value-added activities to produce units of output. So we have to derate that number just a little bit. And so, you know, historically it's between 70 and 80%, and we'll use 75 for this example. So what that means is we're going to say, if I'm paying you 8 hours a day to work, I'm expecting you to do 75% of that on on value-added activities, or 6 hours per day. So now we'll calculate what this company has in terms of effective capacity overall. If I expect my employees to work 6 hours per day, and I have 30 employees, well then it's clear to see that I have 180 total hours of effective capacity. Now, if I have 180 hours of effective capacity and I know that I'm producing 210 units per day, well now I can figure out pretty easily how much time it takes me to produce each unit. And in this case, if you run the numbers, you'll see it's about 51.3 minutes per unit. Okay, that's really good information to know. But we also want to know what the labor is costing the company on an ongoing basis. And in order to do that, we want to understand what we're paying our employees, and we call this the burdened labor rate. And what that means is that you're paying them a salary and wage, you're paying them for time off, holidays, benefits, taxes, all those different things that are lumped into total compensation. And in this case, our burdened labor rate is $19.75 per hour. Okay, so if I take that $19.75 and multiply it by the 30 employees, and then multiply it by 2,080 hours, which is how much you pay an employee every year, I come up with a pretty sizable number of $1.23 million in labor costs per year. All right, well that's important, but what's really important is to understand what is the relationship of that labor cost to the total revenue. And if you take it as a percentage, you'll see very quickly that it's 38% of the total revenue. And like I said before, that's a significant amount of cost that a company has to bear. All right, so now we have all of the good information here, and we want to understand, you know, what happens if we really look inside the process. We calculated these numbers based on what we know, but what if we look inside the process? So when we went and we looked at this company's process, we went and walked through everything they do to produce a unit, and we looked at the value-added activities along the lines to produce a unit, and we added them all up. And what we came up with was not 51.3 minutes per unit, we came up with 39.4 minutes. So that's a big difference. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that we probably don't need 180 hours of effective capacity in this organization if we still want to produce the 210 units. So if we run the numbers on that, we find out really quickly that we only need 138 hours of effective capacity to produce 210 units. So what happens with the 42 hours difference? Well, remember we said that we're expecting our employees on an individual basis to exert 6 hours of effective capacity. So if I take the 42 hours that I've now got available and divide by 6, I find out that I really don't need 30 employees, I only need 23. So that's a difference of 7 employees. I've got 7 employees too many to produce the output that I'm looking to produce. So what can I do? Well, I can get rid of 7 employees and produce the same output, right? Well, what does it cost if I maintain the status quo? Well, if I take those 7 employees times the 1975 times the 2,080 hours, I end up with a number of $287,000 per year that I'm essentially throwing away. It's money that I don't need to spend to produce the output that I'm producing. Now let's take a step back and look at it a little bit differently. Now, if I'm growing, which is what we all want to do in organizations, I can say I've got 7 people that I can use to produce more output. So how much more output can they produce? If I take a look at the 39.4 minutes per unit and run that into the effective capacity of 42 hours that's available via those 7 people, I find out that I can produce 63 more units per day. So now I can produce a total of 273 units. That's pretty amazing. Okay, but now let's step back and look at how companies will traditionally approach this. Remember, some companies will go get the information and they'll say, gee, you know, it takes us 51 minutes to produce each unit. And now I want to produce 273 units. I'm producing 210. What is it going to take me to be able to produce that additional units of output? And they'll run these numbers and they'll find, lo and behold, I need to go hire 9 more employees. Now, instead of using 30 employees to produce 273 units of output, I now need 39 employees. Well, what does that mean? If I take the 9 employees that I just added and I multiply by the $19.75 and I multiply by 2,080 hours that I'm going to pay them in a year, now my waste number goes from 287 to 370,000. And you say, that's great, Brian, but my revenue went up too. Yep, you're right. Your revenue did go up. It went up to 4.21 million. But your waste went up as well. Your labor cost in total went up as well. And when we look at the relationship of the waste to our total revenue, in our old case, it's 9%. And guess what? In our new case, it's 9% as well. So what do we do? Well, if we know that we can produce the additional output with the same number of employees, that's how we need to work. That's what we need to work toward. And when we do that, we find out that our labor costs per year will remain the same in the face of the increased revenue. And when that happens and we look at the relationship of labor cost to revenue, we find now that it's only 29% of total revenue. That's a big step. And what we've just said is that by making these changes in the process, you have saved your company 9% of your total revenue. So that's why it's so important to get to the bottom of the process and understand what all of the value-add activities are and the non-value add activities and get rid of those non-value added activities. And that's how PTK can help you. So I want you to go out to www.ptk101.com, check us out and see how we can help you. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll talk to you real soon.